Hello everyone, welcome to the Product Marketing Show. I'm your host, Rish, and today with me, I have Priya Doty. Hi Priya, how are you doing?
Hi Rish, how are you?
Pretty well. So Priya is CMO of NeuroBlade. In her previous role, she's been VP Product Marketing at IBM and has worn different hats at CA Technologies and Ogilvy. Priya is officially a certified storyteller too. I just saw she released her previous book, Finding Warrior Pose, which is an Asian American fiction. So Priya, I think storytelling comes normally to you. Let's jump on to how do you tell the story of your product. Before we jump in there, briefly give a shout out to our sponsors, Content Beta, a full stack creative team on subscription for software companies. Create product marketing projects today and get delivery tomorrow.
Okay, yes, storytelling does come. It is part of me and who I am. But it's absolutely something that I learned over the years, both in my experiences in the working world and also in the writing that I did and have done and continue to do. So the question was around storytelling and product and what does that mean? So, if you think about just at the base level product marketing, many of us think of it as a positioning function where the goal is to make sure that your product is well expressed, that you have understood the strategy, that you're positioning it correctly in the world, and that you're thinking very clearly about the target audience of who the product is going for, and then making sure that the messaging really appeals to that target audience. And many of us use like a lot of these product marketing frameworks, Serious Decisions, Pragmatic, CXL, Product Marketing Alliance, and probably more that I don't know of. And so we use these frameworks and we, use them to make sure that we have all the right targeting, we have all the right messaging elements. But sometimes what gets lost is actually the storytelling, right? We get so busy putting all the pieces together that we lose the story. So I think from my perspective, when I think about storytelling, it starts with who is the character? Who is your main character? And for most of us, the main character is our brand. Our brand is the main protagonist of the story. And then it is, how does that person behave? How do they think and feel and act in the world? How does a brand behave in the world? So when something goes wrong, how does the brand behave? When something goes right, how does the brand behave? Okay, so now you have a person that you've created, but then you also need to think about what happens to the person, right, in the course of the story. And that's actually where your customer comes in. Because for your customer, the way you express the story to them is, what is the role that this character that you've created have in their life? Right? So when you think about your brand or your product and you think about it being a thing with a personality and it behaves a certain way, and then you put it into the world of your customer, you want to say, what is the role that this product is going to play in the customer's life? Maybe it's a hero, maybe it's an achiever, maybe it's going to help guide them somewhere. And what is the from to? Where are you taking your customer from and where are you taking them to? So this is a little bit of an abstract idea, but the way to think about it is, take an example. Take an example like a company I worked with called UPS, which is a large logistics company. It's probably well known to many if you're in the US market. But the UPS had a problem. They as a brand, they're very much about their passion for logistics, which is getting something from point A to point B. And for their customers, the way they behave is they'll go the extra mile for them, right? So this is a brand that cares about logistics, the people behind logistics. Their drivers are very passionate about, what they do, and they'll go the extra mile for their customers. So that's their brand. That's who they are. That's how they behave. But what was happening was their customers were having a challenge because they were buying a lot of things online, like we all do. We buy e-commerce, all these different things, and they weren't getting their packages on time. Sometimes they would miss the package. They wouldn't be home, and they would get these notes on their door that would say, "Sorry, we missed you. We'll come back another time." And a lot of times it would just happen over and over and over again. The customer was never home. So what UPS did is they created a product called My Choice. And My Choice was basically a mobile app, and it let customers decide, oh, package is coming, let me reschedule it or reroute it. I'm not going to be here, I'll be in another town, to control the package delivery. And it was really successful. It went from 0 customers when we first started working with it, brand new app, and they got 1 million subscribers in 6 months. And now, 10 or 15 years later, they have, 18 or 20 million users of this product. But the role that the product played in the customer's life was of creating joy, taking a situation that was frustrating to them and turning it into something that was actually enjoyable. That now they got their product on time, they didn't have to stress anymore, and they could be happy about getting the thing that they had purchased, whatever it might be. So when we thought about building the creative for it, what we did was the creative team came up with this concept of taking that sticker that they would get on their door that said, hey, you missed the delivery, and reconfiguring it, bending it into an origami shape and turning it into like a dinosaur or a cat or whatever, just to kind of have some fun with it, to say, listen, we know this was a pain point for you. I'm going to turn it to joy. So anyway, it's a long story, but it's this idea that product marketing goes so much further beyond just clinically writing, these are the key proof points of my product on a paper. It's about thinking about your product as a story. And when you can do that, you can actually bridge the gap from, what is the product to what does the customer actually need.
I loved how you put down the framework together. And probably the same framework, like you said, there has to be a character, there has to be a story, like figure out first point A, point B. I think these elements are useful not just like for your product marketing, but probably messaging everywhere, right? If you're doing your cold outreach, probably in your email copies, probably in your social media. And I really loved, can we just revisit that again? So you said there has to be a character first?
Yeah, so it's actually 4 things, right? So first you have to, if you're writing a novel, which, some of you may do in your lifetime, it's a thankless task, but first you have a character. So you have the character, which is your brand or your product, and they have a personality. And second of all, that personality, that person, that character behaves a certain way. So a lot of times people think of this as the brand experience. What does the brand do when they have an issue? Do they proactively call the customer and say, hey, we messed up, sorry? Do they just ignore it? How does your brand behave? And then it goes to how does your brand enter the world of the customer? The customer is the reader of the story. What is the role that the brand plays in the customer's life? So how do you help the customer? And really understand that at the core, because that actually is your positioning. At the core is how you help the customer. And then the last is, how do you help the customer get from where they are to some other place? And if you're telling a story, that's the core of what you do. You have to take somebody from the beginning of the story to the end. That from to is also important because that's how you get a customer to try, to get off the sidelines from, that's interesting, to, hey, I actually want to go check this out.
Awesome. Probably, I'm definitely going to make like an infographic out of what you just said, because this could be used anywhere. Probably even if you're writing like a book, even like a social media post,
Anything.
How to engage somebody from start to the end. I think that's a great way to structure your thoughts. Can you take us, you would have seen so many products in your career. Can you take us through a couple of products which create stories?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this for the podcast, so I had a couple of ideas that came up just in terms of like what we're seeing in our daily life. So actually one is one that will probably be familiar to a lot of people, which is OpenAI and ChatGPT. And I'm guessing you've tried it before, maybe?
Yeah.
You have? Okay, so...
Most of our listeners for sure have.
Most of them have. I've been playing with it too, like many of you. I think this is an example of it's a brand new solution to the world. So it's a new solution and it's actually creating a new need, right? It's nothing like this has ever existed that I'm aware of in the world. And the brand itself, like if you look at OpenAI and you look at how they present themselves, right? They have ChatGPT, they also have DALL-E. But the way they present themselves, their personality, they're almost like a sensei or a guru, somebody who's kind of in the background guiding you, but they're not going to be like beating their chest telling you they're amazing. They're just kind of like helping you become better. And the behavior, the way that they behave as a daily, in a daily world is wisdom. They're smart. They have all this knowledge, all this stuff that they want to do. But they also want to be very inclusive. They want to be supportive of the world. And then you think about you as a person. Why are you using ChatGPT? Why are you using DALL-E? It's because the role that they're playing for you it's letting your imagination run wild. I mean, my gosh, like these are things that you've never even thought to put effort into thinking about, these crazy ideas you might have in your head, and you can just so quickly actually express them. So it's creating almost a new role in your life of like letting your imagination run wild, but then also being able to express that imagination. And I think the journey is essentially something of like, hey, I had this random thought. Is that too weird? And, to all of a sudden just have an answer in seconds. So a really interesting, for me, it's a really interesting story because it's like, what else, what could you create with it? Because I don't think I ever had a need for something like ChatGPT until I saw ChatGPT. So.
Yeah. I think, I've seen this pattern repeat across, like even how iPhone story was told, right? I mean, none of the consumers ever needed iPhone. I mean, if there was consumer research who would do research what product you need, iPhone would have never come up. And I think such products have to do like really good job of telling the story.
They really do. In fact, I was working at a telecom company at the time that the iPhone came out. And I vividly remember some of our executives saying that nobody would ever care about a smartphone if it didn't have a good network. Like the network was the ultimately more important thing, was having the connectivity. And yet there were so many people that were like, I'm going to take the iPhone and the network is terrible, but I still want it. So.
Where do people normally go wrong, in terms of telling a story about your product?
Well, kind of, I'll tell it to you in two ways. So the way that I see it happening a lot is, it's hard being a product marketer. It's really hard. You've got to figure out how to tell the story, explain the product in an accurate way, in a way that targets the right customers. And usually you're working with your engineers, your product managers, and you're having to get a lot of different points of view from your stakeholders. And also you're having to do some research, maybe some testing. So it's not easy, right, to put the story together, put the messaging together. But where I think I see people go the most wrong is they usually will, they're like, oh, it was so much work to put the product description together. I think I will just stop there. So they don't actually take the time, like in that example I gave of the storytelling. They do a great job of explaining what the product does, but then they don't take it and they don't think about what is the role the product plays in the customer's life. How can I maybe take this and sell the product to the customer and not just describe? So, I've seen, for example, you'll have people who they'll submit content and it'll be like, my product does XYZ. Great. Why does that matter? Why, you haven't explained to the customer why they should be interested. What is the role the product plays in their life? And maybe that requires some editing, that's another common mistake that product marketers make. They will write a description and it'll be like one run-on sentence with 16 different things they think is important. No, you have to pick, what is the one most important thing that you think the customer needs to understand that will help make them choose to use your product or to try or be interested to think about your product in the future. So it's that, I think the biggest mistake, to summarize, is they spend all the energy on writing the description of the product, and they don't spend enough time thinking about how to explain it and sell it. Why is it better than the competition? Why do you need the product? how is it going to make your life better? There's not enough of that.
I was talking to Pep and he was telling me that, he talks mostly about positioning and messaging. And he told me that differentiation is a really strong component of telling a story about the product. But sometimes, you get so much engrossed in your product features and even talking about the benefits. Sometimes you miss the part that, hey, how do I tell the customer this is way too different than what you would have tried before? Or at least there is some sense. How do you communicate that through a story?
Well, this person is absolutely right, because, it's all about like just having a slightly better feature or slightly better benefit isn't enough. Like you have to actually be completely different in somebody's mind. And actually, when you think about stories, think about the stories you remember. You remember the ones that are totally different, the ones that are maybe they create a new world and they put you in that world. Harry Potter is a great example. Like you're in that world, or Game of Thrones, you're in that world, or it's character based. Some character is just so fascinating, you have to follow them, like the girl with the dragon tattoo. Similarly with products and brands, the ones you tend to remember are the ones that are just so unique in your mind that you create a new place for them in your mind. Like, because the way people think is we all have like a retail shelf, you're walking into a store and this product goes here and that product goes here. And I think I know I can pick from these three on that shelf. So your goal is to put yourself on a brand new shelf so that people remember you as something unique and different. And in terms of storytelling, it means that if you can create a unique character for your brand and a unique role that brand plays in the customer's life, then you will have something unique. So for example, the company I work with today, NeuroBlade, we're early stage. We are still a startup, and our job is we make an acceleration hardware product. Okay. If we were to market the product as being slightly better than the competition, somebody could come and, somebody else will come and make a slightly better product someday, right? So our goal is to show that we are approaching it in a very different way that can make it uniquely better all around for the for the customer. It's, competition is always there. So you want to show you're positioning it differently.
While product marketer creates these stories, creates descriptions, do they necessarily have to be great content creators?
This is an interesting topic because I feel like increasingly they do actually. I've worked at large companies like IBM, and I found that in those kinds of companies, and CA Technologies is another, in those environments, you often have a content marketing person who is an expert in different content forms, different vendors to use, how to produce the best content, and that's great. But usually speaking, a lot of times product marketers have to envision not just the content, but the format it goes in. And we live in, with all the world we live in, we're in such a digital environment. I think that the content actually does matter a lot. Even when I interview people for product marketing roles, even when I've been interviewed, what people want to see is they want to see your work. They want to see your portfolio. They want to see how you've expressed your ideas in the world, and the form matters just as much as the content and the function. So I think you do need to know how to do content. Even if it's, the basics, you don't have to be a total expert, but you should be able to take your content ideas, your writing, and you should be able to design it into something, whether it's an infographic, a video, you should be able to translate it.
What's your advice for small startups who are probably building up their product, could be in any domain? How should they start thinking about their product story?
This is the most fun, right? Because you have no history to hold you back, right?
Because you can be as bold as you want.
You could be as bold as you want, right? Because Like a lot of times what happens in companies is they have so many different products that then they get hamstrung where they have to find a way to rationalize the entire product suite and tell the full story. But with a startup, the sky's the limit because you have a blank slate to begin with. So I think the goal for a startup should be, first and foremost, because you're going to fight the orthodoxy. You're going to be fighting the status quo. You're going to be fighting people who want the tried and true, especially in B2B, but even in B2C, your goal is to find whatever it is that makes you unique and just go so hard on that people remember you for that. And if there's a big enough market for it, you'll be successful. So I think of an example of a product it's not a startup, but it's a relatively new product, is this Remarkable. I don't know if you've come across that. It's, here, I have mine here. It's a new kind of tablet, and the tablet does something very surprising. It simulates the feeling of writing on with pencil and paper. So imagine it's a new tablet that's actually helping you do something you used to do 10 years ago when you were in school, writing with paper and pencil, and we've all stopped doing it. But that's the only thing they major on is the feeling of the stylus on their tablet and how it simulates that feeling of writing on paper with a pencil. That's it. And everybody wants to try it because they're like, wow, I want to see what that feels like. I want to touch it and feel it myself. So they found a way to break through. I mean, who would have thought? There's so many tablets out there. There's a Samsung, there's an iPad, there's, probably Huawei too. But who would have thought that would be something people would actually be excited to go check out? And they did it because they found that one thing that was so unique and just that's what they market.
Does it mean you also got to have a strong point of view, especially when you start?
Yes, absolutely. You should.
Because when you have a strong point of view, you make few friends, but you also pick enemies, right? And most enterprise brands, they are scared of doing that, probably because they have too much at stake, or probably they have lots of different kinds of ICP. Right.
Yeah, it's true. But with a startup, right? You may also be you're also constrained in terms of how many people you can reach out to. So you're going to be very, very selective about the kinds of customers, the kinds of potential people you do reach out to. And chances are you're going to go after the early adopters, the people who are willing to take the risk. And they may be more open to contrarian ideas than the people who are the tried and true. And, I have to see the product working, the more the mass adopters. So.
All righty, Priya, we've towards the end of the episode. Really grateful for you to take out time and sharing your insights. If people would like to get in touch with you or even read your books, how do they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn in terms of getting in touch. That's always a great way to find me. And my book is on Amazon. So it's on Kindle Unlimited. It's on Amazon. It's I think it's on Barnes & Noble. So it's out there, ebook, paperback, all of the above. But seriously, I do love to hear from people. So please do reach out. I'm very passionate about product marketing, very passionate about storytelling, as I'm sure you saw. And always love to chat and share ideas and also learn from others as well. So thank you for having me on the show. It's been fun.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too, Rish. All the best.